Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning to discuss the updates on the transportation session that's coming our way. I'm going to have to stick to transportation today. I have a pretty tight schedule, so we'll have time for questions at the end, but let's keep them to transportation if we can, because I have a heart out. I appreciate everyone being here today. So yesterday, I announced a special session for lawmakers to return to Salem August 29th to take up legislation to pay for basic road maintenance and operations at the Oregon Department of Transportation, as well as address funding needs for local governments and transit districts across the state. Since the legislative session wrapped up at the end of June, my team and I have worked literally every day, talking with legislators, local partners, key stakeholders to zero in on a solution and a timeline for the legislature to come back together and address the state's most immediate transportation needs. And I've been super clear with folks as we've been working on this over the last couple of weeks. Oregonians rely on basic services provided by the Oregon Department of Transportation, whether that's brush clearing on highways to prevent wildfires, plowing in the winters, the maintenance stations, the immediate response on the roads, all those things that are the basic services that ODOT provides, but currently does not have the resources to continue at the level that I believe Oregonians deserve and expect. Folks in our state, Oregonians, are expecting our elected leaders in the legislature to deliver the adequate and stable funding that is necessary for ODOT and other transportation needs right now across the state. So without the resources being provided by the legislature at the end of session, I had to direct the agency, to direct ODOT to act prudently to move forward with initiating a first wave of layoffs. Without resources, we have to be able to have a balanced budget within the state of in the state agency. So layoffs were announced on July 7th, and while that has been going forward, I've been monitoring that situation, but also working to reduce those impacts as much as possible with utilizing different resources available within the agency to mitigate those layoffs, but also make sure we could keep as many services going. But it has not been easy. So since yesterday, with the announcement of the special session, which I think is on track to be successful to provide the resources, I also directed the agency yesterday with agreement from legislative leadership, because as leaders are the one that ultimately write the checks, I wanted to make sure that they understood what could be at stake by giving the agency any further direction. So with the plan for the special session now in place, I directed ODOT yesterday to postpone the date of the start of the layoffs for an additional 45 days, which takes us to about September 15th. This doesn't suspend the layoffs. It just puts the effective date of the layoffs off for 45 days. That allows the staff more time to make contingency plans for their livelihoods, for their families. The bumping process is still going forward, and it pauses any major disruptions in services at the moment, like the maintenance stations. But that is all predicated on success in the session. I am confident that next month, legislators are going to show up. They're going to approve the necessary funding for the state's transportation needs. And I truly appreciate their partnership right now to address the crisis that is facing the state when it comes to transportation. We are in this situation because we have insufficient funds in the agency to do the operations and maintenance work that we have to do. We need to have a line of credit to pay the bill. Right now, we don't have that. I'm going to go through the details of the bill the framework of the bill that's currently under consideration. When legislators pass that bill, we will have the resources for future to allow us to get back to work, avert the layoffs, and get back to serving Oregonians the way we need to serve them. So let me talk about what's in the current framework for the special session legislation. It's not going to come as any major surprise. My goal has been to keep it consistent with the conversations in general that happened over the last year, and especially during the last 6 months of this year in legislative session. So on the revenue side, to pay the bills, the proposal at this point is proposing a 6 cents gas tax, an increase in the gas tax by 6 cents. Also including some increases in registration and title fees, another $42 on registration fees, supplemental fees for electric vehicles at $30, and title fee increases of $139 for an addition to the fees. And that's when people buy new cars, and we assume that's about every 6 years. So taken together, the gas taxes and the vehicle registration fees that are the consistent and traditional way we pay for these services. Taken together, these dollars will cover the ODOT budget in order to maintain basic services for Oregonians and prevent the layoffs of workers who provided basic services. The 6 cents will also allow us to continue the split that goes to local government, so they can also meet their current transportation needs. So that would maintain the 50-30-20 split, 50% to the state, 30 to counties, 30 to cities, 20 to counties, because that is important. And you heard that at the end of session when there was an attempt to have a Band-Aid bill at the end of session. So the 6 cents will cover ODOT, will cover cities and counties. And then in addition to that, this package would increase the payroll tax for transit from 0.1% to 0.2%. to fund our struggling transit districts across the state, particularly our transit districts in rural parts of the state. They are facing a financial cliff. This isn't everything they need for future sustainability, but this will get them through to continue to maintain their services. So that's the revenue side of the proposal. No surprise, you're going to continue to see the elements that were discussed in session around accountability for the agency, calling for a regular performance audit by the Secretary of State, giving me the ability in the future to hire and fire the ODOT director. There will be more legislative engagement on major projects, additional review of local scope of projects, and there will also be more consideration about the fairness of how those fees are applied to different types of users on the road. All things that have been discussed in session, and we'll provide detail when the bill is ready, but no surprises there. There was bipartisan interest in continuing to make progress on the road user charge. And so what you will see in the bill is a commitment to implementing into the future the road user charge for existing electric vehicles, new electric vehicles, and hybrids and plugins. And that will go into effect in the next biennium, but there is bipartisan interest in doing that, and that is an important part for future funding of our transportation system. So we need to get started, so you see language on that in the bill. And then also some additional language that reflects some conversations at the very end of session around tolling. I was asked late in session to commit through a letter that existing language in statute regarding tolling that was put in there in 2017 was not operative at this point. So there will be language in the bill to repeal ORS 383.150, which established mandatory tolling on projects in House Bill 2017 from the 2017 session. So we'll be taking those out. We are on a pause across the system on tolling outside of the interstate bridge, and I want to make that very clear in the bill. So I think I'll just end by saying you were all aware, going back to the impacts of services at ODOT, that on July 11th, we had to make notice, the state had to make notice that some of the maintenance stations across the state would have to be closing because of the impending layoffs and the budget cuts. They are currently, any closures are currently on hold. So all those facilities that were on hold, Estacada, Sweet Home, Rose Lodge, all of that list, they will maintain operation. There might be some disruption in services because honestly, we have some staff who are making choices to potentially leave the agency regardless of what's happening right now. So I hope we won't have any disruption, but we're going to try to keep all the maintenance stations open along until September 15th or before when we have resolution in the special session from legislators. So with that, be happy to take some questions.
Thanks, Governor. I'll jump in. As Anka said at the very top, if you have a question, raise your hand. You do that by going to the bottom and press react. Raise your hand. I'll call on you in the order that I have you. And as the governor mentioned, there's a lot of, I'm sure there are a lot of questions, so let's do our best to keep it to the topic at hand. Let's start with Chuck.
Hi, good morning, Governor. Chuck Slothauer with the Daily Journal of Commerce in Portland. Thanks for taking the time today. Yeah, I spoke with Senator Mark Meek over the weekend, and he mentioned that he was open to a special session, but he wanted to see a repeal of 383.150. And I was wondering, was that a commitment you made to Senator Meek? Was that a deal to get him to support a transportation funding package?
Well, I had thank you for the question. I had a lot of conversations, either me or my team, since the end of session. And this was an issue that had come up from other legislators, not just Senator Meek, about the lack of clarity at the end of session, which is why I had to write a letter. Now we have an opportunity with a new bill to really make that clear. And I know that is something that Senator Meek is supportive of, as other members, particularly in Clackamas County, are. So I think it's the right thing to do. It provides that clarity, and I do think that's important for Senator Meek.
Lisa.
Okay, thank you.
Balick.
And frankly,
good morning, Governor.
That's important for the
Lisa
state.
McCloy.
Can I just say that on the tolling issue, I think it's an important clarification for everyone. So, and I appreciate the question that some lawmakers are more interested in others, but I think it's an important clarification. So, sorry, go ahead, Dirk.
There's Lisa. Lisa's on deck. Go ahead, Lisa.
Sorry.
All right, thanks. Good morning.
Hey, Lisa.
Governor, what assurances do you have that there will not be a GOP walkout and you've got buy-in from them?
In my conversations with, thank you, Lisa, in my conversations with Republican leaders, Leader Drazen and Leader Bonham, they did not express any concerns that people would not be in attendance. They said they didn't believe there'd be any quorum issues. And, the only issue I think, well, some people might not be there is because if they have vacation plans that cannot be changed for whatever personal reasons, but everyone is going to make an effort to be there. And I believe we will have quorum in both chambers.
Dirk.
You have the buy-in from them.
They expressed no concerns. And in individual conversations with Republicans, I share that assessment that I'm not worried about quorum.
Hey, Governor, on the revenue piece, are you saying that all of these revenue elements are necessary to get you to the 354 plus whatever the cities and counties get, or are you actually achieving more for the state? We haven't heard an overall price tag for this from you. So, my understanding was that 6 cents might get ODOT pretty close to the $350 million it needs to close its funding shortfall, then send more to the cities and counties. It sounds like maybe you're going for more than that. But again, you haven't shared us any price tag. And also, really quick, since I'll probably only get one, did I miss you talk about HCAS or weight mile rejiggering? Is that part of this too, or are you saving that for another day?
Yep. So on the 6 cents, the 6 cents will fill the budget hole for ODOT, but it is also necessary to maintain the commitment to 50-30-20 and our cities and counties. And you heard this after session. We had local governments making assumptions on their budgets. They have needs as well, and we're expecting some increase in the gas tax and some distribution on reg and title fees. So I want to honor that. We're going to maintain that. Because you remember at the end of session, it was 3 cents. We went to 6 cents. That manages ODOT, manages the cities and counties, and plus the addition for transit. It is the minimum to manage all of that. And then in terms of the issues that have been raised by truckers, the heavy duty users, we are working on something to provide certainty that we are fixing those issues. And we're working on that language now, and we're in conversations with the truckers. It was also an end of session issue about we need to get to modernization of the weight mile methodology, and I'm firmly supportive of that, and making sure that we honor the fairness of the system, that if there are mistakes in the future that we're addressing that. So we'll have language soon about that, and we're in conversations with the truckers about it.
But just to be clear, I'm not sure. So my question was 6 cents helps you address the funding shortfall. You're also talking about registration and titling fee increases. Is that money on top of addressing the shortfall? That's not necessarily needed
No.
to avoid layoffs. You're saying all of it is needed to avoid layoffs.
Correct. So at the end of session, when it was 3 cents in reg and title, just for ODOT, similar. It is gas taxes and reg and title fees all told together will meet the needs of ODOT, cities and counties together.
Thank you.
Dick,
Thank you very much as I try to, there I am. I think, Governor, I'm trying to understand the relationship with you and the Transportation Commission. The Transportation Commission is meeting Thursday, I believe, but there are two seats that, two terms that expire June 30th. Why have new members not been appointed? And are they the ones who run ODOT, or do they just appoint the director currently? What I'm getting at is who has the authority to stop the layoffs? Does that make sense?
It does. You know, in the 2017 transportation package, there were significant reforms around the role of the Oregon Transportation Commission and as it relates to the agency. And one of the things that was changed in 17 that legislators would like to change back is my role with the ability to hire and fire the director, for example. Certainly the OTC members understand that without adequate resources, we cannot continue service as normal. And so I have been working directly, and my team has, with the director. They're meeting on Thursday. I haven't checked their agenda. You know, they do a lot of oversight of the projects and those things that are also ongoing as well. As it relates to it's not uncommon that we have people who have terms that have expired. Some of that has to do with the timing of when we can do new appointments. We hope to have new appointments there when the Senate is back in September. So that's just a timing issue. I would read more into that than that. So.
thanks, Dick.
Thank you.
Julia.
Thank you. Julia Shumway with the Capitol Chronicle. Good morning, Governor. Our next revenue forecast comes 2 days before the special session is supposed to start. And at that point, we know there are a lot of questions still left in May about the effects of tariffs and federal funding recessions. We might have a clearer picture by then. Does whatever's in that revenue forecast affect how you're thinking about both the ODOT budget and then more generally, if there's more Oregon might have to do to adjust its budgets if we are seeing a significant downturn?
At this point, the forecast in my mind is a separate conversation because the dollars that will be considered by the legislators at the end of the month, next month, will be non-general fund resources, traditional user fees that have paid for transportation. I think that's important to stick to that revenue source to pay for those things, because I do believe, and mostly because of federal budget cuts, that we will be having a general fund conversation going into the next year's session. But I think that is, in my mind, separate from the transportation discussion.
All right, thank you. Blair?
Hi, Governor Blair Best with KGW. My question is, you continue to talk about raising the gas tax, but that was a major sticking point for Republicans and a main reason they weren't backing the bill. So how do you plan to get Republican support with continuing to want to raise taxes?
Thank you for the question. In conversations with Republicans during the session and since the end of session, what I heard was concern about the size of the transportation package. In general, I think there are a lot of folks across the political spectrum that believe that gas taxes and fees are a consistent way to fund transportation services. I think the complexity of the package, concerns about process, and the scope of what was being considered was more of an issue than the underlying connection between gas taxes and fees paying for transportation. And I feel that I don't, right now, we have not figured out which folks will be voting for this in the Republican Party, but I do think people understand that this package is necessary, that this proposal is necessary, and it is based on past practice of how we fund these services. So I think the size is different than what was taken up in session, and there could be Republicans who will be comfortable voting for it.
Thank you. Nigel?
Morning, Governor Nigel Jaquith, Oregon Journalism Project. So do you have the votes today or do you not have the votes today to pass this package?
I believe the proposal as I provided has the support to be successful on August 29th.
And will your staff make a copy of the proposal that you outlined available to us today?
We will get you more details, yes.
Great, thanks.
I ran through it pretty quickly, so yes.
Thanks. Dirk, I'm skipping your second question and going to Carlos.
Hi, Governor. Carlos Fuentes with the Oregonian. How final is this proposal? Do you think we're likely to see any changes to it in the next, 5-6 weeks?
Well, drafting is underway. And I think it's really important for people to stay focused and disciplined on this package. I've been very clear with people. This isn't a free-for-all for new things. We've got to focus on the urgent need ahead of us, which is transportation. That's what this is about. And that's what I believe should be the only conversation in this session.
All right, we've got a couple of minutes for round two. Go ahead, Dirk.
I'm not hearing you talk about anchor projects, Governor, and there seems to be a lot of uncertainty right now around the Rose Quarter, which you've supported in the past. Given the fact that we're losing a big chunk of federal money and there's not an immediate answer for that project in this package, I mean, what is your stance on that project? Does it need a pause and a rethink? Are you full systems go? Like, what's your sense of it?
Well, and on this particular proposal for the special session, I've been super upfront with people that we're not going to do everything as it relates to transportation that the state needs. For example, large projects at this point. This is about basic services, cities and counties, and transit districts. We have also needs around our major projects. I think what I would say about Rose Quarter is I will continue to advocate that the federal government, who has made commitments, at least for one portion of that project, continues to come through. And that's what we're focused on right now. And we have to develop a path to get that project done. I do think it's critical. It's a safety issue. I think it's a modernization issue. And at this point, we don't have a clear path to funding it, but we're going to continue to work on it.
Thank you.
Dick.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Who exactly is putting together this package? And can you explain what your role has been? Because you've been very active, as I understand, contacting people. The previous packages were put together through the legislature. So who put together this package and what was your role?
So my role since the end of session and my entire office has been focused on what are the elements that were under discussion during the session that can be put together to solve our immediate budget problem, which is what you're going to see in the bill. It is being drafted. I've been in consultation with the presiding officers, the Senate President, Speaker of the House, about how best to proceed. And there has been consensus that we need to have a targeted proposal that deals with budget issues. And that is what is in this proposal you'll see in the legislation. And any additional issues are things that, from a policy perspective, seem like the right thing to add, but you will see it's not everything that was in House Bill 2025, and nor should it be. Those are bigger conversations for future sessions. That's not what we're doing in this special session. I'm not complaining, but the minute the session ended, I canceled all my plans, as did some of my team, and we have been working on this nonstop with folks. We've also been helping the agency manage a layoff process. Let's just say it's been a busy few weeks, but with a special session identified for a date and an overall framework, we are on the path to solution. And I want to thank everyone who's been working with us, but we have been very focused on this since the end of session.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anastasia.
Good morning, Anastasia Mason with the Statesman Journal. Governor, I'm curious, Representative Drazen has said that there were other options besides going to a special session. One of the examples she's given is potentially using money that was set aside for the emergency board. I'm curious your reasoning behind calling the session, if you think those other options would have worked or not.
Well, I think there's two reasons for the approach that I'm supporting, is that this is traditionally how we have paid for transportation services like operations and maintenance, as well as transit districts and local government needs, through these type of user fees and a modest payroll tax. That's how we do things here in the state. It has worked. We want to stick to that traditional approach. With regard to the Republican proposals, particularly as voiced by Representative Drazen, by Leader Drazen, I think you have to ask her, well, what would she be cutting by taking that money? The general fund dollars that she is referring to are being reserved for things like wildfire suppression, caseloads in the Oregon Health Authority and Department of Human Services that we're anticipating. We are going to have general fund budget challenges, not only potentially because of a revenue forecast downturn, but because of the federal budget cuts. I think it would be imprudent for us to take those dollars for transportation when we have a predictable traditional way to fund it.
All right, we're gonna go with our last question. Take it home, Ben.
Yeah, Governor. So, under this framework, with the 6% tax, when would that go into effect, and would it all be at once or phased in over a period of time? Thanks.
The 6 cents addition to the gas tax would, I believe, go into effect the 1st of next year. Earlier implementation of some of the reg and title fee increases. But if we know that those dollars are coming, it then creates a new line of credit for us to say, well, that money will be coming and we can avert the layoffs and return to basic services at ODOT.
If Julia and Chuck have yes or no questions, that's just a yes or no. Let's just do it.
Okay, yeah, this could be a yes, or a no. Leader Bonham said that if you're serious about fixing their transportation system, you would start by repealing your executive order on project labor agreements. Is that something that you've considered doing?
I think the project labor agreement discussion is separate from funding our basic services.
All right, Chuck.
Yeah, Chuck Sotho with the DJC again. Looking back at the June session, what has changed since then? And is there anything you would have done differently? Introduce the transportation funding package earlier to get that across?
Well, there was a lot of work in the session on transportation, not only from legislators, but from my office. But I can't focus on what didn't happen. I have to focus on what we need to do. And here we need to solve the budgetary gap in the Department of Transportation that everybody was well aware it would happen without resources. We heard loud and clear that our city and county governments need resources for their basic needs, and transit districts are facing financial uncertainty. Those are the three things. What has changed? Sometimes you just have to be able to focus on one thing. We're going to stay super focused on this set of proposals that we need to do to meet the urgent needs in front of the state right now. What I've also said, we need to get off this, every 8 years we do this big package in the state of Oregon. Clearly this session, that ability to do that is getting much more difficult. We should be like other states and have annual or biennial conversations about transportation in bits and pieces. That comprehensive package, too big. We're going to focus on what we need for the next 2 years. And then you will see, I think, over the course of the next several years is individualized conversations about other things in transportation, because that, I think, when you take smaller parts, I think are easier to have success. And I think a lot of people agree that we need to have a different way of how we do this instead of trying to do one big thing every 8 years, which has not proven successful this year.
All right. Well, thank you, Governor, and thanks to everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We'll get you any of the details you need. Take care. Bye-bye.